Welcome to Heroes of Improv. I am Kira Tyson, an improviser, a teacher myself, and an associate producer from Duluth, the improvised soap opera, which is in full production at the moment and will be airing in mid-May, so very soon. And today with me, I have Jill Bernard, another hero in the improv world.
Wow.
Hello. Oh my God, I'm so pleased that you have time and that you've come. And for the people that don't know you, I'll do my own introduction, I think, which is you're well known, and do say if I'm wrong, but you're well known, I think, around the whole globe for probably being one of the most, to me, jolliest, happy, positive, smiley personalities in this scene. This is so
that could be. I think I think that's right. I think that's accurate.
And what I think is, so beautiful is that it's that's the main thing, that when I hear Jill Bernard, I'm like, everybody knows that is. It's just a big smile and your beautiful attitude. But of course, you're also famous for performing with ComedySportz, right? Twin Cities since 1993, if I did my homework, a long time, huge time. And you're a founding member of the huge theater, oh my God, in Minneapolis. That's where you're living right now. And you have a one-woman improv show or piece, which is called Drum Machine, and unscripted musical. So you sing and you dance, which I love, do all sorts of things. And you've been featured with that and more, I think, not just improv festivals, but you've taught and performed in like more than 28 different countries around the world. It's from Argentina, Australia, Bulgaria, over to the Emirates States, even to Sweden, Switzerland, Germany. You've been pretty much everywhere. More than 40 states, is that right? More than 40 states in the States, in the US.
Yeah.
You've even written a book, Jill, right? Which we all have. We all have your gorgeous little book, your little book of improv. And I just love that book. The cute, small little book of improv. I use it for papo. Oh my God. For papo. How do you say it? For papo?
For papo. But it's not a real word, so it doesn't matter.
but I love it. I love that it's, but yeah, everybody has that. So my first question to you, Jill, is, are you 108 years old?
108 years old?
Like, to have done that. To have done
You know what's funny? Like, I have taught in over 40 states, and I'm 48 years old right now, and I wanted to do 50 by 50. And I don't know, because we've had 2 years off like this, I don't know if I'll make 50 by, the pressure's going to be on. I only have like 12 or 14 states to go, and I'm really going to have to like clip it along once people can travel.
Wow. Well, what about outside? Can you not just does that not count? If you just do
I don't feel like, an outdoor tour. The funny thing is, it wasn't strategic. The 12 or 14 states I have left are kind of spread out. So there's not a nice tour that you could do. I know.
Damn, you should have thought about that.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna cross my fingers. I believe.
Thank you.
Good that now that everybody hears it out there, the first thing you're gonna do already now is start booking you. Just book you. And then we've done it,
Knock it out.
Book you. All right, Jill, today I invited you to share your personal point of view on your experience of dramatic improv. Although you come from a classic improv comedy background, would you say that you practice dramatic improv as well? Or perhaps even more when you're in Europe, for example?
Yeah, kind of this, you and I were speaking about this moments ago. There's kind of a terminology problem. The concept in my circles of dramatic improv first came up maybe 10 or 15 years ago. People started asking how to do dramatic improv in the sense that how to do improv that is not funny. And what that initially meant to them was like to do something really heavy and weighty and solemn and sort of dark and joyless. Um, and it wasn't, I don't think, in those early experiments, I don't think it was clear to people that they just weren't thinking about the fact that all of the good dramatic pieces you see have moments of lightness and have a balance in them. On the saddest day of your life, something funny happens. Um, it's not a black hole. And so those early
I'm
scenes were.
happy you say that, right? Because this is exactly, you're stating exactly what we're hearing, Jill. A lot of people think, or did think, oh, they hear it and they're like, oh, dramatic just means sad and just going to cry and it's not entertaining. Who wants to go into theater for that, right? That everyday lives is bad enough, but, which is like, no, what dramatic actually has got nothing to do with it, not including laughter and even beautiful comedy moments, but they don't drive for the comedy. It's not like stand-up where you need to, those punchlines, you want to be funny, you want to entertain, whereas it just slows things down. So I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, which isn't to say that you can't do scenes that are not funny. Um, I think you should. I think it's nice and not funny trying to, not the unfunny scenes you do that are supposed to be funny. I'm talking about dealing with serious topics or tackling difficult conversations. That's all possible and beautiful, but I think it stems from a broader misunderstanding in theater. In the United States, in the early days of theater, um, Chekhov was very popular. Not the early days of theater, but Anton Chekhov was greatly misinterpreted in the United States. People thought of those as tragedies. So when you saw a production of Chekhov, it was always played with a really heavy hand, really solemn, nothing funny in it, no jokes, no lightness, no levity. And that was a dark black turtleneck, that's what people thought um, it would be. And that sort of bled over into what people were imagining in improv. Now, you asked your original question that I steered you off of was what's my own introduction to dramatic improv. I think I started really my work with Joe Bill. We have a duo called Scram, and Joe also, like you said, it's to me it's not about being heavy. It's about being allowed to be theatrical and present something that's more realistic than just comic and has that blend. And so Joe Bill and I have done some that was kind of my introduction because there was only two of us. We could do something that had space, that had uh, all sorts of joy and despair wrapped in the same package. Um, and the other thing I think about when I think about dramatic improv is like having seriousness in improv is um, when I do my solo show Drum Machine, what I like best is that I can do something truly sad, truly sad, and because it's wrapped in the context of the broader shows, people remember it as being a funny show. Um, I, I did a show one time where a soldier knew he was going to die and sang, and he was a very young person. He was like a 16-year-old soldier who knew he was going to die and sang a really sad song about it in the middle of the show. But because it was wrapped in a comedy.
That was 2019, I think, at Olymp in Greece, right? Mount Olymp. Was it that one?
I'm thinking of what years before that, but I'm sure it happened
There
even
was
more
a
time.
salty one in that one where you were being gunned down.
Yeah.
But you had a really, like, it was a funny moment because you played it so well and you're great at it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
then, you started singing and you had lost, your soldier comrade and it just became like, so that was a similar situation there. Yeah. Wow.
But the lesson of that started for me. I learned even later that the show could be. I think something interesting is happening in improv now where the actors are getting to be more authentic and share some of themselves and some of how they're feeling through their characters and through the subjects of the scenes that they do, which I'm fascinated by. Um, I don't remember what year, but a few years ago I performed in Germany at, at the Würzburg Festival, and I had a terrible cold. I was very sick. I had a cough. I didn't feel well, and my throat was so sore that the idea of doing a show was just horrifying. And you know, when you're sick and you're away from home, so I was already feeling very tender. And so I did the show anyway, because a solo show is sort of safe to do sick. It's just you far away from the audience. But I did the show anyway, but I couldn't be comic and I couldn't put on a mask of like, "Ugh." So I did a show that was truly sad. And everyone in the room was crying, and people came up to me and spoke of, after the show about how they connected to the character of the mother and her son. And it was really a beautiful moment and educational for me as a performer that there are other things that improv can accomplish besides laugh a minute comedy, which sounds like the experiment you all are embarking on. What else is available to the art form? There's nothing wrong with laugh a minute comedy, but what else can we apply the concept of unscripted theater to?
Exactly. And I think that's exactly what's beautiful, what you said, is that where else can we apply it? And I think the outside world, so the non-improvisers, they don't know how much depth there is in improv. They only know the comedy side because that's what it's been famous for, the stand-up comedy, the big comedians, you know, that's all they know. So every time you talk about improv, everybody's like, oh really, you're not funny, you're not that, and I'm like, well, when I thanks, but no, I do the more, you know, I go for dramatic improv most of the time, and if there's a moment, then it's beautiful. But my friends and I would never say I'm funny, because otherwise I would have gone into comedy improv classic, right, and really trained that. But I think that's the part that most people don't know, that there is other sides to it, and there's no better or worse, because I love improv comedy. I love to go, when I'm in that mood, I'm like, yes, let's do it. But I also love the vulnerable moments, watching amazing stage pieces where I'm so moved. I'm even more moved knowing the actors have gone on stage, improvised a piece in the moment together as a team, and gone through lows and highs, and they've risen, they've fallen, and they did that together. It just makes me even more wow for that art form, right?
Yes.
And that's what's so beautiful. I think that's what's so nice, to bring it to the outside world, to be like, hey guys, you should look at this. You should look at this more attention for it. Yeah, definitely. Okay, Jill, this is going to, my next question is going to be, especially with, for example, the drum, your one-man show, Drum Machine. You do bring in always different characters, simply because you work off what the audience gives you. But do you have like a little stash of characters in your bag, because you've been doing this for so long, that you always give them birth again, just call them something else and bring these characters back to life? You reuse them because, or do you even use one character over a long amount of time? Have you seen him develop, or her?
What's one of my gifts as an improviser is that I have a horrible memory. I have just an awful memory. In fact, the transition from short form to long form for me personally was like a pact with my brain. I did. I've always said that I have a pig in my head that eats facts. His name is Gerald. And when I started doing long form improv, I made a pact with Gerald. And I said, if you let me hang on to information for the 30 minutes required to do a long form piece, I will let you eat all of the state capitals. So I no longer know any of the US state capitals, but I can hold on to information for just long enough to do a long form Herald or something. Um, what that means is I repeat characters all the time, but I do not have the sensation of doing it. I only notice it when I look back at photographs of my show, and it doesn't connect to me in the moment that I'm coming back to it, but it turns out I really like to hunch my shoulders and hold a very fat cigar. Like I really enjoy that. And this is going to be some kind of a person, often a dictator or the leader of an army, right? Somebody. I like that. My body enjoys it, so I'm going to re-inhabit it. But I'm not, there are some improvisers who have what we call a personal commedia.
Mhm.
Commedia dell'arte is the original improvisation, and it was based on stock characters. You see those characters in every commedia dell'arte piece, no matter who's performing it. So some people have a personal commedia, and these are characters they revisit purposefully and develop those characters over
Right,
time.
right.
I personally don't, that's not, my brain cannot function in that way except deliberately. Now, I directed a show called Ordinary People But Not, based on the play uh, Ordinary People, that went on to be a really great award-winning movie, because that play had a really beautiful template. It was about a family, uh, and the only other character is a psychologist that they interact with. And the first act is cold, and the second half just kind of spirals out of control. So the shape of that piece is easy to recreate improvisationally if you're just hanging on to the frame of it and not really the details. If you're hanging on to the relationship. I directed that piece, and what was fun about it is the actors tell me that they did really enjoy inhabiting the same character for I think we did 6 shows max, but they enjoyed hanging on to the same character for all 6 of those shows and wearing the same clothes, even literally sinking back into the same person and living in that person and getting to know more about them over time. And it's funny because they were playing the same emotions over, not the same emotions, but the same journey of not having a connection to your emotions to opening up. So they got to open up that character 6 times.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that for them was also interesting to learn more about how that feels as you do it.
It's a bit like method acting, right? It goes into that sort of direction because it's like you're allowing your character to experience new things every time with a bit of framing, but there's hardly any frame. He's still got so many possibilities with improv, and that's what I love about it, right? You can still choose at any moment any different path. It's one word can change your whole storyline, or somebody else endows you with something, and whoosh, you're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yet, even if you have that frame of, oh, I'm just going to be the same character for 6 episodes or 24, like Duluth is doing now, I mean, madness, we're exploring exactly that. How much depth is there to this person? What happens when she's really stressed? She's going to be very different to when she's really nice and wants something, or when she's, when she's hyper, or when she's loving and hurting. There's so many different things that will happen to a human, just like we are complex. So we get to delve into that, you know and I think sometimes it's also to do, when I watch a lot of your shows, I mean, I love watching you. When I play with you, I love it as well. And what I notice so often is you're so good at characterization, and you're so good at the physicality of it. And I think body memory is interesting as well, especially I watch you, and very often you automatically, boom, you get a suggestion, or you get something, and you just get into it, and it's like there's a body memory going on. It's so intelligent, and you'll get to something that will just give you an inspiration yourself, and you'll be that, like you said, you'll be that, cigar smoke. Yeah. And that's amazing that our bodies memorize it, our brains don't have to. Sometimes it will help us along the way, and then you can still add and feed and change them completely. There's enough to do with it. There's enough creativity.
Yeah.
But having a starting point, beautiful. Yeah.
I know that when I was younger, I was contemptuous of the idea of a personal commedia. I thought that it was, cheating. Um, but then there was a legendary New York improv group called Inside Vladimir, and I saw them and they just were fantastic. And after the show, I learned that they operated from this principle of a personal commedia, and I like gulped hard, like, "Ugh, lesson learned," right? It's just a different way of exploring this same art form.
I mean, it's like with any art form it is, or anything you do. Improv is so technical, right? I mean, the amount we learn, the amount we do, and practice. It's just like jazz musicians. They practice. They're brilliant, and when they come together, they're just gonna roll with it and see what happens and trust in everything that they've learned. It's enough there to be able to do something with it. And I think it's like that with improv. And which technique is it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everybody brings something to the table, and everybody's interested in different parts of it at different moments of their lives. I mean, you're one of the great improvisers, I think. I mean, you teach your.
This interview is the best. Everyone should get you to interview them and just talk about how they're one of the great. This is amazing. Keep going, keep going.
I mean it authentically. Like, what I love about you, and I think this is not so often actually, is I have seen you so much. Thank God for the pandemic, I always say, because especially in Europe, you have been bouncing in and out of not just like festivals, but IFO. I mean, you've been taking classes, you've been giving them, but it's so nice to see improvisers, that although they're teachers and they belong to great theaters and stuff, there's still, now that the world's out there and that we're doing this over Zoom and suddenly we're able to connect to other people on the other side of the planet, it's, you finally get to be like, how do they teach? I want to jump into that. And you get the chance to now, without having to fly 24 hours or 18 hours in a plane and book a hotel. Now you have the time and possibility to do that, to jump in, to get new inspiration from others, to see how they teach, to see how the beautiful genres, to get inspired again, and not just to be the one that's giving input, right? And I think you have been doing that beautifully. It's amazing.
Well, I think it makes it easy. Zoom, honestly, this is one of the only great advantages for me of Zoom is when you're a famous improviser like myself, just Google me. When you're famous like myself, for me to walk into an improv class often, especially in the United States, often if I walk into an improv class, it makes the teacher nervous and throws them off their game. And we don't get to see what that improv teacher is capable of doing. But it seems much, and it also kind of throws off the other students, like they suddenly want to do a good job because I'm there. But I want them to be in their learning mode, and in learning mode you make lots of mistakes because you're trying something new. You're ideally, but something about Zoom when we're all in tiny boxes makes it less likely that I'll throw off the teacher or throw off the other students out of their best mode for learning and teaching. So yeah, that has been enjoyable. I can just be a small square and not.
It just makes it more accessible, right? That's the beautiful. You can jump into other classes, and of course, if you're in the same class, there might be things that are like, or the teacher might be like, oh, I'm really privileged, like, wow, and you're both great improvisers probably, and you're both famous, but it's so beautiful to be able to also show you're supportive of each other, and you're actually really like, cool. And I think it's also nice for just general students, no matter what level, to be in a class and to be like, bam, now I'm playing a scene with a fantastic improviser who's so globally known, and I get to be in a scene with her and I'm just rocking it. I couldn't have had that experience before because of the planes and because of having to put and even then. So it just makes people on a different level, and it makes them suddenly that you can touch these immortals. You're like, wow, I can talk to them.
Yeah, I checked a real bucket list. Um, During the pandemic, I got to take a workshop with Omar Galvan in Spanish, which I would never have done in person, not only because of the traveling and because we're often scheduled to teach opposite each other, but I don't really feel confident enough in my Spanish speaking to like be a student in a workshop. But it was like a big workshop with 50, 70 people, and I could just like disappear on page 3 and listen and enjoy. And it was the format of it was very nice that some students got up to be the examples and others of us just lurked. And yeah, it was a real like honor and an opportunity that I hope I could find someday in person. I still want to take a workshop with him in person, but it like, ooh, of all the pandemic highlights, which is a weird phrase, that for sure was a pandemic highlight.
Yeah, I think I can't say which ones, I've been to Omar's as well, Omar Galvin's as well, but I think I've been at least in 3 with you. 1 definitely with you in this lockdown, and 2 I think with you, or 3 with you in others. I can't remember which ones because I've just done too many. I've just abused the improv world, so I've abused myself with it. I've just been so grateful for this. It's been such a beautiful ride.
Improv Fest Online is just such a, you and I see each other at Improv Fest Online all the time.
Okay, but that's exactly what, I think bringing it back to Duluth, this is the beauty of it. Everybody's jumping around. And I think this is also beautiful that I see now a lot of US people playing and meeting the Europeans more than they would have done before. And also the Asians are coming in, you've got people from India, from Sri Lanka, everywhere. And suddenly we're all got the culture going on, the language. I respect so many people for it being their second language, English. Like for you and me, it's normal. But for them to dare, like you had that Spanish experience, and they're doing brilliantly. And it's even more, I think, wondrous that I keep saying, as well, I have a lot of expats in my class, and I keep saying to them, it's where you realize that most of what we talk is just unnecessary. You can do so much in improv without having to be verbal. And that helps them be really confident as well, But having said that, tell me something, Jill. Have you ever played, you can say this with yes or no, have you ever played a character for 24 episodes?
No.
No?
No, I sure haven't. Unless you count the referee character in Comedy Sports, which I've played for hundreds and hundreds of episodes.
Character, and you're not Jill, you're jumping into a character?
Comedy Sports is all heightened self. You play yourself, but a heightened self.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't count it. I wouldn't count it.
All right. Okay, something very important now is that you revealed that you don't only live in Minneapolis, but you've actually spent some time and lived in Duluth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which means you can talk about Duluth and tell us, like, what is Duluth like? What?
Yeah. Duluth, I moved there because like I graduated from college, was kind of drifting around, ran out of money, and went to
Then why do you go there? Apparently only rich
stay with my brother. I went to stay with my brother. And gosh, that would have been 1997 or 8. And the sad thing about Duluth is it was built on the iron industry. It's part of the Iron Range of Minnesota, and the taconite industry, which is a byproduct of iron mining. And it's as that industry went away, it feels like the city never really adjusted. And there's a feeling there of loss, of like, there should be something coming back. There's a downtown, there's a big casino on the main street, and a lot of people hang out in the casino. But as you can see in your background, it's on Lake Superior, which is one of the Great Lakes. And it feels like an ocean. It's so big. And when you're standing, there's little hills on the picture behind you. When you're like halfway above the hill, there's a beautiful special effect where the oar boats in the water appear to be above you. So it looks like the boats are in the sky.
Oh, wow.
And the hills get so icy and snowy in the winter that at least on our street there was a rope so that you could pull yourself up the hill to get home
Oh,
at
how
the end
cool.
of the day. Yeah, there's a you often hear boat horns all day long. There's a and every single time I pretended I farted, I would say, "Oh, excuse me." Every time. Oh, excuse me. And I never got sick of it, and I never will. There's a beautiful lift bridge in Duluth where when the boats go underneath, it's up like this, but then it lowers so that the traffic can go. And I always, it feels kind of lucky when I see it move because it only happens a few times every day that a big ore boat will come through. So if I happen to be standing there when the bridge raises or lowers, it always feels a little like a sign of good fortune.
Oh, wow. And what are the Duluthians like? Because it was funny. There was an interview, I don't know if you've watched it, also on Heroes of Improv, and it was Michael Gelman, no less. And it was so funny because he says he's actually Minnesotan himself, and he says the funny thing is with Minnesotans is that they actually believe, and he states they are the best Americans in America in the state. And this is the mentality. So now I'm going to ask you, because you're also in Minneapolis.
That's an odd thing to say. That's a very odd thing to say.
Are you one of the best Americans? Come admit it.
Um, I'm not from Minnesota originally, so I do have an exterior perspective. Like Minnesotans, uh, it's cold in Duluth, so your shoulders hunch forward, and then people sort of live that way. They sort of live a little bit closed. There's a funny joke about Minnesota that Minnesotans are so nice. They'll give you directions anywhere except to their house.
Oh, I like that.
There's another joke like Minnesotans met everyone they ever needed to meet in kindergarten. Like they don't, we're sort of like there's a bit of humility to it. There's a bit of privacy to it, but everyone is so nice all of the time.
I said
For
that.
the most part, like there's a lot of my joke is like if somebody finds your wallet, they'll return it to you with more money.
Oh, good to know.
I mean, that's the surface level. There's a lot of things, a lot of the problems that exist in all of America exist predominantly in Minnesota. There's an undercurrent of racism in all of the structure of Minnesota. But Duluth is an interesting place because of the iron industry dying out. So there's a lot of
Moving in, right? In the last years, apparently, a lot of these sort of yeah, people that want to go and have all four seasons, people that feel like, hey, there's great properties there, there's a lot of richness in the soil and in the beauty of the place, that they sort of get beautiful, amazing houses. So you've got a lot of new urbanization going on, but they're all sort of doing let's open up a fancy coffee shop, and so you've got a lot of the old versus the new, the out, and that's what we're trying to display as well, the new people coming in, and then you've got these old characters, which I hope we do. Everybody's deciding to play, some that are coming in, some that have already been there for ages. And interestingly, we also want to get that diversity going. That's why we have such a diverse cast, because we heard that we have a few racial differences there, and they're not so interracial, and we would like to show there is a different side, or we want to display Duluth and our Duluth with a bit of that twist to be like, this is what it could be in the future. Keep going. We want to push that diversity. So that's nice, and I
yeah,
hope.
I mean, all of Minnesota is traditionally Native American land. So everywhere you go in Minnesota, there's history there that is quite painful in all of the cities and towns of Minnesota. You're not. I have a history book of Minnesota, and I play a terrible drinking game where you flip open to any page and take a drink if something horrible is happening to the Native American population. And so far, I've only found one page where it wasn't some horrible injustice to Native Americans happening at some phase of Minnesota's history.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just this undercurrent. But if you think about Duluth, it's on the channel where the French explorers, the voyageurs, came and and sort of made their way onto the continent. So there's like conflicting sources of pride. Like people have pride in this land from different directions at the same time.
But I think that's also one of the reasons why it's rather beloved by a lot of the Americans, but a lot of the outsiders too. Like it doesn't go under like other counties perhaps do, you know, or other cities do. Although it's not a huge city, right? It's not enormous, but it's just very well known. It's like people, they hear Duluth and they're like, oh, Duluth.
Really? Is that the reaction you've had? Everyone's heard of Duluth?
Well, not the Europeans. The Europeans, they're, you know, but a lot of the US people, yeah, and obviously the Canadians do, because depending on where, but you know, they're just above. So, but they do, yeah, and that's funny, very funny.
Has everyone seen you the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald?
Oh my
I'm
God.
trying to think why it's well known. Maybe it is just the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
I don't know. I think it's more maybe personal connections. I think we've been talking to people that are like, I've been there, or I've lived there, or oh, I know somebody, or hey, they all sort of, maybe it's the history there, it's the Great Lakes. I mean, there's a lot out there. That's what I have no idea. I haven't been myself. I would like to. After maybe this episode, maybe I should get out there when we can fly again to visit it. You know, be good.
And it's one of those cities that's the right size to have charming places. Like you'll find a beautiful bakery and just get to hang out there. Or out on the waterfront, there's a place called Fitzger's that's a brewery and a hotel, and just like this lovely sort of special place to just go sit and enjoy the lake and enjoy, like you'll find a lot of handicrafts, like beautiful handmade woolen things, or a lot of woodworking. Yeah, it's a very, I wish I knew what to call that kind of city where you can be very creative there, and as part of your life. Like maybe not the whole, maybe you don't make scrimshaws as your whole job, but it's something you do and you get to sell and share with people, and amongst the things you do in Duluth.
That's good to know. Okay, any last, before we wrap up, any last, with our endeavor that, you know, we're doing 24 episodes, any tips you have, any improv tips where you would give the cast, good luck wishes you would give the cast? This is your slot, give it to us now.
Nobody's favorite improv warm-up is checking microphones and camera levels. So please take some time before your show to breathe and be as present as you can be. I enjoy touching the face of my scene partner through the camera on the screen, as weird as that is, just to take some time to connect and make sure you are in your body and in your space and not caught up in the technical elements.
Great. Jill, it was such a pleasure, and I just hope that you definitely push your thumbs, cross your fingers, watch the show, feel at home when we're talking about Duluth, our crazy characters. And I am so looking forward to seeing you very, very soon, somewhere. Another scene. All right, sweetheart, thank you very much. Keep being great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow. That
was fun. Thank you. That was really fun.
That was fun.
Everyone should get you to interview them and talk about how great they are. It's a good service you can offer.